All right, we're just waiting for Dr. Lang. Did you say she was coming right back? Okay, I guess we can start. She should return momentarily. We're returning from executive session to regular session for Hastings on Hudson Board of Education meeting for May 2nd, 2023. We're going to open up with our public hearing on the 23-24 school budget. Any public comment? No? Okay, that's fine. We're going to move on. As part of the record, our announcements, and district highlights are included, attached, or actually in the on board docs. So we're going to jump.
I think there's an error in one of the dates there, though. It has the old date for the BOE candidates forum as being May 4th, but I think they changed it to May 10th.
Oh, that's true.
So.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yes.
they did?
Yeah,
Yes.
changed it to
There
May
was
10th.
one person couldn't make it, and so it got moved to May 10th.
Yeah.
That's correct. What is that under?
That's under the announcements.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So the second item, BOE candidates forum, is not May 4th. It is 10th. Okay. So the questions, I guess you can submit questions up until May 9th, until the day before. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. We're going to move on to our student report. Gus, you want to open it up?
Actually, it's Eliana.
Eliana.
Up to me tonight. So, as we were talking about the music trip, this past weekend, the high school band, chorus, and orchestra went on their overnight trip to Hershey Park for the Music in the Parks competition. Friday afternoon, students arrived in Pennsylvania, where both the orchestra and the band each performed 2 adjudicated pieces for judges. The performances were then followed by a fun night at Dave & Buster's. On Saturday morning, the choir performed, followed by a very fun, eventful day at Hershey Park, where students were able to ride roller coasters, run around, buy food, get whatever they want, do whatever they want. At the end of the day, before heading back to Hastings, students attended the award ceremony. The high school band placed in 4th, and both the orchestra and choir placed 1st place
Oh, wow.
for their division. So huge
Right on.
congratulations to all of them. All this week and next week are AP week, so students are busy studying, working hard, and of course seeing our amazing teachers after school who are always there to support us and give us guidance. So good luck to all those taking tests. And this past Thursday, April 27th, students in Mr. Smith's Super American History class, Mr. Smith, attended a discussion on civil rights at the Hastings Public Library, facilitated by Mr. Smith, librarian Regina Kelly, and Thomasita Hutchins, a literary professor at Hastings, where Alistair Casey, who's a veteran social studies teacher, going to voluntarily lead a community event in a town where he doesn't even live. Participants came prepared, having read a few articles on the evolution of the civil rights movement, and then we took part in enlightening discussion. The conversation amongst the multi-generation group sparked when the question of how do we define racism was asked. So thank you, Mr. Smith, and Lucas, for a lovely evening. And I do need to mention, past weekend of April 21st, 22nd was High School Music. It went amazing. I can speak from personal experience. It was a lot of fun. So I want to thank all those who were in attendance. Thank you.
So, May 1st was college decision day. Super. By there's some jockeying that goes on in terms of wait lists. List of the school that you might choose over one that you've definitively got. And sometimes you'll get 4 or 5 kids every year about that, Miss Quigley, that do that each year. So there's that might happen a little bit. For the most part, though, people wear their shirts and hats and take pictures and really nice time. And I just want to with this process being almost pretty much done, big thank you to Miss Quigley over there and all the guidance department. It's because of them that we're going to school next year.
That's impressive.
No, seriously though. You know, it's you guys that made this all possible. So thank you. It was also athlete signing day yesterday, so we actually had 8 seniors that are going to be playing varsity sports in college. So big congratulations to Anna Thomas, who's going to be running track and cross country at Wesleyan, Katie Cho, who's going to play softball at Wellesley, Michaela Ross, who's going to be on the soccer team at Rochester Polytechnic, Michael Schultz is going to be swimming at University of Rochester, Noah Engoff is going to be running at Colorado College, Rob Kennedy is going to play football for Hartwick College, Sal DeLeo is pitching on the baseball team at SUNY New Paltz, and Zeke Manley is going to be playing soccer also at Colorado College. So really, really nice group of seniors that are going to be sort of continuing their athletic careers in college, which is just a testament to how awesome our program is here. And you can see the names of those schools. Those are some really prestigious academic institutions as well. So we've got that nice balance of scholars and athletes. Finally, on science research. So this is some really exciting news. There were more than 60 applicants to the science research program, which is a huge number. So there's going to have to be an application process to get into the class next year, which is a great thing because you can sort of figure it actually really wants to do it. And he was just like, all right, fine, I'll put this on my schedule. The fact that there's so much interest is a really great sign for the program. And it's indicating that, we're going to continue doing some awesome novel research. We're going to keep, bringing home the bacon at these big science fairs. So it's, really just goes to show, how much attention that class is getting in the whole student body, how amazing Ms. Shandrop is, and how much that program is just going to continue to grow in the coming years. But that is all we've got for tonight. So
Quick question. So science research, what age groups, grades can apply in, it's typical for 10th graders to apply to it?
Yeah, so it is the class is designed for, you apply in 10th grade, you start doing all your research junior year, so you are reading articles and figuring out, where there's a gap in existing research on whatever topic you're interested in. Then that summer, or during the year, you find a mentor and then are going to do your own novel research to try and fill in that gap that you've found. Then senior year, at the beginning, you write your paper and make presentations, and then you compete in these different science fairs.
So there are 60 students from the 10th grade alone?
From the 10th grade alone that are applying into it. I think there are only 10 seniors this year that were in the program, and that's largely due to COVID. They're I think more like juniors who are in it right now are going to be seniors next year, but you can sort of see administration is on board with giving that program the resources it needs to
Correct.
It's interesting though, that's
Incredible.
40%.
That's like half the class almost.
a lot of people that I was sort of surprised were interested in it that are giving me awesome telling me all about what they want to study, and it's really cool. It's just kind of these infinitely motivated classes where you sort of give people the leeway to just explore. It's pretty amazing to see what people can do.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, this is amazing, not because I'm a science nerd, but I'm extremely excited. Let me ask you this. Which fairs do you compete in usually?
So we, this is sort of in the past, the two big ones have been JSHS, which is the Junior Science and Humanities Symposium. So that's under kind of the aegis of the Department of Defense, and there are a bunch of other sponsors, but that sort of starts at a regional level. That I think it was
Do you do the ones that are local here?
And then it feeds into a national. So JSHS, there's a Westchester one that then you go to the state one, which is in Albany, and then there's a national one, which was in Virginia Beach this year. Then the other big competition is ISEF, which is sort of like the Olympics of science fairs, what they say. So again, there's a regional one in Westchester, and then that feeds into the national one, which this year was in Houston.
Did we participate in that this year?
We didn't send anyone to ISEF this year. We had some people go to state JSHS, but there were a ton of people that placed really high in their categories in the regional one. Then we also had, this year it wasn't mandatory, but we have a ton of people compete in the Regeneron Science Talent Search, which is not a fair, but you submit your, it's basically it's bigger than a college application. You send that in and you have a panel of scientists read your paper and sort of all your responses to these questions and holistically evaluate, are you going to be somebody that will be somebody that's pushing the frontier of science. And so Luca Force, I know we talked about this a little bit earlier in the year, won that this year. So he was in the kind of first round. He got to the first round of that. It was 300 people. It was a huge accomplishment, and won $2,000, and then another $2,000 for the science
Yeah, I
research
remember
program in
when
school.
you announced that.
I think next year, I was talking to Shandroff, that's going to be mandatory. So everyone's going to be competing in STS, ISF, and JSHS, which is a lot, but it means that there's a lot of opportunity for us to do really well. And with that many, we've got a lot in the pipeline. So definitely Eliana and whoever
Good
our
farm
next board is going to be bringing you some
Yeah,
good news.
one last question.
Yeah.
Do the students here partner with researchers in other universities? Okay.
Yeah, and actually, we've had a number of students over the past few years being published in peer-reviewed research journals.
That was what-
And they're partnered with mentors.
In other universities, great.
What's really cool too is we've now got some graduates of Hastings that are coming back to be mentors for current students. So
so great.
my mentor for science research was a Hastings grad, and now I think there are 2 that are being mentors for the juniors. It's signed up to be mentors for juniors right now, which is really cool, just to show
So
how
cool.
powerful the program is.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I just want to piggyback off of what you said, Eliana, that play, I don't know if anybody saw it, but that was an absolute romp. I mean, like, that was off the charts. I was telling my wife, like, I would pay to see this, like, off Broadway, like, be happy to have seen it. It was absolutely amazing. Every year it gets better and better. I know that Lori asked you guys, I guess, what play you want to do. I'm not going to hold you to it. What do you think you might want to, what would you suggest next year? You're going to be a senior next year, so what would be, like,
Oh,
the...
oh wow, that's a loaded question.
You can
Yeah, we're really, really lucky to have Lori here. Yeah, my son saw it. I wasn't able to go, and he's very discerning and pretty critical. And he's 11, and he said it was amazing. So congratulations. Sorry to interrupt once. I just got a text that said there's a tech issue, that the sound keeps cutting out. Okay. I just wanted to make sure you knew.
So that's, we're aware.
All right, thanks. Just make sure you speak into the microphone then in case it stinks. Thank you.
Okay, so we're aware that the screen is jumping.
Yeah.
Good evening, I'm Savannah. I'm a parent of a 6th grader student at FMS, and I wanted to address the events of March 22nd and the way they were handled at FMS. I'm reading a condensed statement now, and I do have the original longer statement. I wanted to make sure I was in minutes, so I will email that to you guys tomorrow. To begin, the bathroom incident had ableist and racial implications, but tonight I'd like to focus on just the racial component. And I just want to be really clear that because there was a racial slur used, this actually is a hate crime. First, the administration's actions and communications were not consistent. Although we were promised no tolerance and emphatic condemnation of bigotry in emails, there was no harsh punishment for the students involved, and the student body was never unequivocally told that FMS does not tolerate hate. Second, on March 23rd, the students involved with the video were reprimanded, but they should have been sent home immediately from school that day in order to protect the victims who were their classmates. The administration and the Board of Education didn't deem this infraction, this hate crime, as serious enough to set aside the policy requiring a 24-hour waiting period while parents were notified. So my question is, how is this not considered serious enough to send these students home for the rest of the day for one school day? The administration and the Board of Education need to define serious in their policies and prioritize the rights of the victims. Third, the administration needs to explicitly condemn hatred at the middle school. FMS students are not given unambiguous anti-racist messages by lessons or speakers or other similar type of events. The lack of decisive action has given bullies the confidence to continue making monkey sounds in the hallways. And they are now brazen enough to say N-word derivatives to the faces of Black students. Lastly, our school district has a reputation for inclusivity, but recent events show otherwise. I think it's shameful that the new school budget doesn't include a DEI administrative position. The bare minimum response to an event like this, an event that could be called a hate crime, is to create this position. So in conclusion, the Board of Education and the administration need to hold students accountable, need to ensure that all students feel safe, and take time to be definitive in their anti-racist actions for the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? No? Okay. Moving on to business items. Are there any questions or comments about business items 1 through 6?
I wanted to point out that business item 6 was a late add. There's an explanation for that in the first paragraph. It had to do with the timing of receiving the proposal and the timing of the availability for the Assembly for Children.
Mikey Fallon, he was here last year, wasn't he?
He was
Okay,
very
right.
well received.
Right.
So can I ask a question then? Is this, since he was here last year, is it only for certain grades that he saw? Is he going to see the same kids again?
My understanding is that it is for the building.
They're gonna do a 5th grade first, like in the classroom, what they did last year, then they're gonna break out all the other grade levels into like a small group.
Yeah, and it's part of the, this is one of the steps in the action step planning that was in response to what's been happening at the middle school. So making sure that we have a student-centered assembly that's been vetted and well-known and well-liked, and that it is for the entire building, but formatted a little bit differently.
I just want to make sure that he has a different presentation that he did last year, because these kids are very critical of, they recognize when they've been told something before and they need something new. So just make sure that it's.
Last year's presentation was just with the 5th grade who would not have had it last year.
Right.
And then the second piece is for the 6th through 8th.
Got it. So it'll be new for most of these kids. Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about business items 1 through 6? Correct.
Just a question, was that 8,000 for the prep work involved, or is it just for the,
Speaker fee.
yeah, the 75 minutes and then 2 60-minute workshops, but is there prep also?
It's for all of it, like anything that they're doing to prepare, the travel, the facilitation, and the various different assemblies. It's inclusive. They didn't break it down, for each of those parts, but it includes all of it.
Okay, so it's more than just those few hours of work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve business items 1 through 6?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Any questions or comments about our placement and services for CSE and CPSE? Is there a motion to approve our placements and services for CSE and CPSE?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're going to vote on our personnel as a consent agenda. Are there any questions about our appointments, amendments, or leaves of absences? there a motion to approve our appointments, amendments, and our leaves of absence?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any questions or comments about our minutes from our April 18th meeting? Is there a motion to approve our minutes from our April 18th meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. New business. Who can provide some background? This is the Westchester Putnam School Board Association. I was a little confused looking at it. It's the board of directors and there are people who are vying for different positions. Is that what it is?
Yeah. And then we just pulled it for one.
Oh, it's a slate. Okay. So, we're not voting on that tonight, or it's just, oh, we are, okay.
Are you asking if we have to pick amongst
Which one?
people?
Yeah, I was a little confused because some of
did
them
it
have
last time.
roles. It's basically just approving a slate? Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And I think we have to approve the budget as well.
Yeah, that's together.
Okay, gotcha. So are there any questions or comments about the Westchester Putnam School Board Association Budget and Nominating Committee slate?
I have a question. Last year, it was separate, right? And we all had to decide which, it wasn't a slate,
That's
right?
different.
That was
That
different?
was, yeah.
That was a BOCES,
A
okay.
rep for a certain
Oh,
area.
you might have been as
Yeah,
well.
that was,
Yeah.
I think that was state, New York State School.
Yes.
Okay, so that's different from this one, all right.
Is there a motion to approve our Westchester Putnam School Board Association Budget and Nominating Committee slate?
So
Moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Second public comment? No new public, so we'll move on. Gender review, I guess this,
One over here.
oh, I'm sorry.
Not even public, just a question.
Sure.
There's more going on in the middle school than just an assembly, right? About the.
Yes, there's a whole plan that's been developed, and so that's next on the docket, along with an art project that's been designed. I do know that Jennifer Spirelli will be sending out a memo on Friday, a bit more detail. Action steps.
Sure, you wanna just
Microphone,
approach the- Yeah, second public
so,
comment.
so that they can hear you.
As I said, the school has been really great about doing exercises and push-in lessons and all that kind of stuff. The problem I see as a parent, and other people see too, is we're dealing with 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds. They don't understand nuance. They don't get, if it doesn't happen immediately at the time, they're not going to connect the art project to what did happened 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. What I'm really trying to say is that someone just needs to get on the PA and say, there's been bad behavior and it's not acceptable, and just to remind you guys, this is not who we are, and this is the way it is, and I'm going to be clear and emphatic in my statement. So that's really what I was trying to say, is that I think that everything that the school does social emotionally is awesome. It's just when I talk to my own kid and I ask him how things are going, he can't put together what the push-in lesson was a week after what happened. And the announcement that was made was vague, and understandably so, because everything was still in the midst of an investigation. But because that one announcement didn't specifically say racism is bad and we don't do this, the kids missed the point. So it ended with a note about cell phones and how there'll be a cell phone, policy, blah, blah, blah. But 9 out of 10 of those kids, when you ask them what happened, they said, it's a cell phone thing. That's all they got out of it. So I guess I'm just saying these are kids who need to be told explicitly that the actions that are happening aren't tolerable. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just
No,
wanted
no,
to
it's
clarify
public comment. Don't
what I
worry.
was
This,
saying.
this is your
Yeah.
right place,
Yes.
that's the law.
If
So
there's
you're
any other
not-
comments, can I have a discussion if other people have
We don't have.
We don't do
we do that?
discussions,
Discuss and-
but we
Oh,
can
gotcha.
hear, yeah. And
Oh.
I have a comment to make, but I'm waiting till the board comment.
Okay, gotcha.
Will be
So
very
I'm
soon.
typing, which will be very
So
soon,
type
so.
quick.
Thanks,
yeah.
this is my first one, so, thank you.
That's
Your
okay.
second.
Thank you, thank you. Moving on to just the agenda consideration, our next meeting, just to point out, it's going to be 5/23, right? 10-year recognition, I guess we'll just cover this with Bill if there's anything that comes up. for that. So, okay, back to the agenda. Dr. Lang, it's Board of Education comments.
Probably others want to say something. So I first want to recognize our student leaders and our administration for the seriousness that I have seen that they've picked up to deal with this problem. And just so you know, for guys who I've never seen him do this, to just say that was very comforting, because there's a lot going on, and I know this, the students themselves have stepped in that actionable way which you're asking. And so you can see that he wasn't letting it rest, right? When things
Sorry
went.
if I was looking too-
Which was great. I actually, exactly, because it just felt the authenticity that the community is looking for, and you gave it. Trust me, I can say everything, and I will still be told you're on the board, right? That's it. Like right now, that's all I'm getting. Oh, you're on the board. So that's why you're saying the other side. So I like the fact that it came from you, because it just adds the weight in which you're looking for. And you're right, we are all in a growth mindset right now, and we know we have to learn. And I want everyone to know that currently where we sit as a board, and correct me if I'm wrong, we are working with a growth mindset where the community input matters and we actually use it. And we just, all we've been looking for is the respect that comes with it, right? So that we all know that we are all in this together, working together. Am I right or wrong? Like, I know that Dr. Samansky does that a lot. I personally know that. You saw what happened with the budget, Maureen was a champion, did it. So there's so I'm not going to speak to, I'm not going to speak to individual or positions and the like. I personally hope that if our finances were able to get on top of it like we want to, we would have this kind of permanent position that we, the three of us, were in the same policy committee at the time, and the three of us championed for this district to have a DEI policy when other neighboring schools were not. And so we believe in this work, but I agree with you. Sometimes it looks like too much paperwork instead of action, right? And so please continue to be thought partners with us. Don't hesitate to bring your voice, because the multitude of input helps shape the best work that can come out of this district. And so we encourage it. So that being said, I know work is happening behind the scenes, but it may not be out there like it should be. The budget that we have right now is looking at both sides of the coin, is the most sustainable one that we can handle with people's finances and all of it. And so it may seem like it's not reflecting what we think it should reflect, being that this community is anti-hate. It doesn't matter what your belief systems are, you cannot hate, period. Everybody has a right to be who they want to be, and without feeling shamed and belittled. So I know work is happening, but I would ask that we make it more explicit, and so yeah, I know I've said a lot of that side. So the other side that I wanted to speak to was the working with the environment and the culture that would include not just the students, but all the parties that are on board, and then calling back the DASA. When I came in here, one of the concerns that the community shared with me was the DASA. And remember, I I shared that explicitly. We talked about it and all of that. I think I would ask that we revisit the approach to DASA, because most parents are telling me, and even kids that have left the district are saying it's not working and it's more harmful than good. And so I'm hoping, my only board input that I wanted to bring out tonight was, how can we make the DASA effective? So that's one. And then the second thing was the feel of persons of color in the community feeling that a lot of the hate crime that happens is more like we treat it like a damage control instead of dealing with the root of the problem, right? It becomes like a damage control. So before now, I would have agreed. I'm not going to lie about it. I would have agreed and said, yep, it's all damage control. But with what I see the seniors doing, last board meeting, talking about the mentorship and all those things, the peer-to-peer mentorship, I would say that it's more than a damage control. And so I think that we have to find a way to let the community know the actionable work that is going on. So that was my board comment.
Thank you. Any other board comments?
Just to kind of go off of what Dr. Lang was saying, and for the public comment, I have often thought, especially in the middle school, that a lot of the DEI efforts are too high level. They're not coming down to what the kids think. I was quite surprised by the letter that was signed by all the parents, because my personal opinion was that it was not as effective as it could be in reaching kids, especially in the middle school. And I know that the administration is working on ways, thanks to a conversation we had at the meeting a couple of weeks ago where Gus was talking about it, and we realized, it's not teachers and grown-ups talking to kids, it's kids talking to kids, because they don't really listen to grown-ups. And so there's a lot of work going into it, and I'm sorry that you haven't, things haven't been announced, but things take time to plan. And there's lots of planning in place that will be closer, I think, to what kids can appreciate from other kids. That's my hope anyway.
If I could just piggyback on that a little bit. The comment you made off the cuff a little bit about, I think it raised a very important issue, is, and to sort of what you've said, is that it's really about building internal capacity in children. It's not just sort of received wisdom that they take wholesale. They need to build within themselves and find their own reasons for why they do things, their own motivations. And I think you highlighted that sort of, that becomes part of the culture as the kids go through here and they end up in a good place. And I think you made a pretty forceful comment. We talked about it a lot, so it was highly valuable. And, I would agree, the focus on building internal capacity. And, that's one reason for student reps that it's very important for you, you guys have that observational piece that we don't have otherwise. So it's very valuable, that information. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to also validate something that I heard, which is neuroscience, which is psychology, that immediate action is always required for juvenile age. We all are parents, we know that. I'm not saying anything that you need to be a rocket scientist to know, right? So I agree with you on that. Just letting the brain know that this action is wrong immediately is so important. That time factor is so important. And being able to empower teachers, because with some of the information that is out there on the street, and trust me, this is a small district, everybody seems to know everything. Even sometimes the teachers feel, they don't feel empowered enough to stop some of these things, because these kids feel so empowered that it's now on them, especially if you are not the cool teacher. So I think that I think we have policies in place because I know that there is discipline policies. It's school districts must have it, so I'm sure we do, but not even hate crime or no hate crimes, there are certain things that require that immediate action, and I hope we have that. We are not the operational body, so we learn things with everybody else. This is an operational piece that we trust our district, and I want to say that the administration we have here, we should keep. I'm not sure if it's the right place, but the assistant superintendent and superintendent.
And one last thing, I think
So
it's
I just
really,
wanna say
it's
that,
important to remember that overall, our district is really good. We're not a district in crisis. We're overall, and all of our children are good. There's no bad kids. There's some actions that we wish didn't happen, but all our kids are good. And we need to remember, I just don't want to make it, you know, some people are victims and some people are perpetrators. The kids who do the bullying, they have their own issues too, and we just want to remember that they're all good kids. We're trying to help everybody.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, not only do we have good kids, but we have really good people in this district doing really important work. And, you know, right from every single level, every single constituent, you know, often people get into this business specifically because they want to make things better for the next generation. They want to make a difference, and that's very real. And so when sometimes things happen, whether it's developmental, whether it's missing the mark, you know, what I see, you know, living in the system is a whole lot of bright spots, a whole lot of amazing things happening, a whole lot of incredible professionals. And I do think the locus of control starts, you know, closest to where the students are. Things are handled in the classroom in real time, and even that is a decision to be made sometimes, right? Which are the things that we are careful not to provide further reinforcement by intervening a certain way versus, you know, what's the right level of enforcement. But I do see people really trying their best to make sure that we have the best system, you know, on behalf of students. So I would just like to, you know, raise the point that we have an excellent place with excellent things happening.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Sure, I think, you know, this is a rare opportunity where we have a 30-minute board meeting and actually board comments can become a discussion. You know, obviously we try to respect the moment, and we try to respect the hours of our administrators, but this is a atypical meeting where we're able to talk a lot freely. So timeline, I mean, as a parent, yeah, it's been 5 weeks. You know, it's obvious the board's appreciative of, you know, the public comment tonight. You know, had you come, you know, a lot of people came after the first week and they wanted to just, you know, express their disappointment and share their concern. But after 5 weeks, parents, you know, are allowed to look into schools and ask their children, you know, what's going on and what they don't see. And in that, you know, I'd like the role of a parent's very clear, you know, and the role of a board member and a board of trustees is less clear, especially in this, but 5 weeks is a significant amount of time. So whereas we're not operational, as Dr. Lang said, and we are, you know, an oversight management trustee, it is reassuring to know that our administrators have prioritized this, even if our children can't give us, you know, concrete examples of how it's working yet. But like many of the parents out there, I'm a parent of an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old. I'm a teacher of 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds. And it is absolutely known to be a challenging age group. So, you know, it's easy to say we're an excellent school district, and you can say that about any industry, you know. 99% of cops are fabulous, but it's okay to focus on the 1% of cops that are missing their role. So what we're doing is focusing on one of our 3 schools that miss. And it's a big concern and it's shared, I hope, by every stakeholder. It's bullying, it's harassment, it is affecting our community and our students, and it's unacceptable. And it takes a lot to get that through to 400 different types of students. And it's more than bullying and harassment. It is creating an unsafe environment, it is creating an unhealthy environment, and it is affecting the learning environment of more than one child. But as a board member, I feel very comfortable in my role in this, and 5 weeks into it, my role hasn't changed. We evaluate administrators, and we interact only with administrators. And I know that parents out there are continuing to bring this to the critical priority focus that it needs to be. Parents interact with principals and teachers, and I think that work is important. Parental pushes from the bottom up, and we are looking at administrators, and the focus is middle school right now. And we have administrators that we trust, and we have administrators that have been clear to us their steps in a lot of different emails, and we are encouraged, or I am encouraged by what I'm reading and what I'm hearing about, because we haven't changed the culture in 5 weeks. This double presenter coming in is not going to change the culture yet, and we want to see results, and you're not going to see results immediately, but it is a priority. Speaking from someone who works in schools, it is the role of administrators and teachers and staff to make it clear what is and isn't acceptable. You really benefit when it becomes the role of students to understand what their role as a bystander, what their role as a leader is, to get involved. And that doesn't happen for 6th graders in a middle school, and it doesn't happen for 5th graders, and unfortunately it's very challenging for any of those students to understand their role. But that's what will be clearly shared by our administrators. I don't think my role is to push for a full administrator. It seems to be one survey they want to give out to board members, and a lot of, comments at our previous meetings, this has to be done. I would push back against that. Our role as parents and our role as trustees, since we're all parents up here, is to have faith in the administrators that we've hired, and to listen to what they're telling us about the schools and the suggestions that they make and bring forth. There's so many ways that our staff and our teachers and our principals and our central office administrators can address this. And I know we have the team that is focused on it. So we are an excellent school district, and we expect to see a significant change in what is unacceptably just referred to as, oh, those are the middle school years. Those kids don't know what they're doing. Those kids are new to understanding it. Well, some 11-year-olds are fabulously able to absorb a lot, and some 14-year-olds can be great leaders, and some 17 and 18-year-olds and 16-year-olds are also fabulous leaders. So, it's a short board meeting. We have time to talk about what we're seeing in the schools, but we also have to remember what we're not seeing in the schools. And none of us at this table who are trustees are inside the schools at all. To tack from that, there are, many other topics we could talk about. Obviously, the best part is the student reports. It's the 4th quarter now. Your year is wrapping up. We have 4th graders who are in their 40-day countdown, their last days at Hillside. 8th graders, last 40 days of middle school, and high schoolers, last 40 days of high school. So there's good things going on all over our schools. it's not as big a priority as the middle school, but we have a budget coming up. It's quite typical. It's almost you know, a standard vote coming up. It had 7-0 support on the board. 2 weeks from now, we want to remind everybody that the budget is coming up for a vote. Lastly, there is new business going on in this, you know, in our schools, in our town. We have another petition signed up there. The fire department continues to ask, you know, for consideration of a new policy. And I think we can start talking about that, you know, after we reach some other more pressing needs. Obviously, the last couple of weeks have been budget-based, and the last 5 weeks have been crisis mode, whether it's been damage control, which would be a negative side of it, or it's been administrators taking a hold of it. So on the least crucial item going on there, you know, I'd like to speak a little bit about what we haven't brought on this agenda. I really feel there's been a disconnect in the role of trustees related to our village. You know, our role is related to schools. And I hope that once we get past the budget, we can start seeing we want to interact with what might be a pressing need by our village, asking us to help the village figure out its recruitment goals and incentive goals for giving tax breaks to certain citizens. The only ones who volunteer for our village are firefighters. But like, I really think our board knows its roles. We try not to be administrators. We try not to be operational. We try not to do overstep our bounds. We're parents and trustees. And in the same way, I'd really like to see the village come to us with a more clear proposal of what they think they need in regards to supporting village works of running a volunteer fire department. But the priority for our discussion can continue to be the middle school. You know, it's disgusting to read that 5 weeks later, it still hasn't gotten out the message of what, you know, respect for all looks like. And that's tough to hear, because it might imply that we don't have enough staff in the building. Not that we need to change the position of one title from teacher on leave to administrator. We may not have enough adults in the halls, on the staircases. We may not have enough adults in the times that are considered dismissal, so that we can support students who want to start self-reporting about what they see. And that seems like something pretty critical to figuring out our schools. As a teacher, you know, I step out of my door, I do step into the halls, but in a big school district on 3 floors, there is clear evidence that the environment needs to be improved in this challenging 4-year period. And it's nice to hear from our high school representatives. They haven't shared any stories of it being the same. And Hillside, the students don't walk around without teachers in front and behind them, so that will always be a safer environment. But yeah, the board needs to determine and decide, you know, where we get involved and where we don't get involved. So I would continue to share out that we have excellent administrators in the buildings right now, and we continue to listen to their leadership on this issue. It's not passing the buck. It's our role. 5 weeks in, we are waiting to see their leadership and their change. So to everyone in Bill and Melissa's team, everybody in the middle school, teachers and staff, we know you're prioritizing this, and the we being everyone with common sense knows this is a massive, massive failing and needs.
So I want to sort of glean from something you said, 2 things. One is that we all agree Hastings is a great school district. That's why we're all here. But as we know, if you were putting on, I don't want to use the word white, but that's the only thing I can use right now. So if you were putting on a white shirt and there was a stain in it, everyone looks at the stain. They don't look at all the other white part of the shirt, which is clean, spotless, right? Everyone will look at the stain. Because, so this is a stain, and that's why it looks like there's the attention. Not because we are saying that the rest of the district is not doing great things. Look at all the great things you shared, but there is a stain on that shirt. And so that's the attention. How do we get rid of the stain is what the focus is on. And the reason why I personally say I'm in support of, again, I'm not operational, so I can't speak to the rest of the principals, administrators. I'm not. I don't know. The people I know is the people that I work with here, Maureen, Melissa, Dr. Samansky, Maketsi, because they are the ones that we as a board interact with. And so I know they are taking the necessary steps. In terms of the administration input that we keep hearing, I personally, I know, and I may be wrong, and that may be not the reason why that push is being given. I know that that push is based on the fact that it gives more leverage and power to do this work across faculty. Because again, I've been in academia in this country for 20 years. I know that how a teacher is not going to listen to another teacher per se, but if there is a structure, so to your point, it may not need to be an administrator position, but if you said there is a committee that has been asked to work in a way that it has that administration back-end to work across the lines that is required for this work to be done, then the community needs to know, so that they know that, okay, this is the structure in place that is equally doing the task that an administrator would do, right? So I think that yes, the administrator is being mentioned, but it's not just the administrator per se, it's the work that we feel needs to get done that is going to spread to and touch not just students, but administrators in the building leaders, teachers as well. Because again, what the community hears is not just about students, it's about everything that happens, which sometimes we think is the students. They are okay. Sometimes it's what is happening with the adults that is triggering to the students. So, and we all know it. So, I mean, some of us know it more than you may even think. And so that becomes the issue. And so our our leadership team, I know, are working hard. And I'm hoping soon enough we will see the actionable change that we are all looking for, because it's not acceptable. There are schools that students have committed suicide around us. It's no joke, and we cannot just, I know we've passed the damage control, like I said, 5 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, I would have said, yep, it's damage control. That's it, that's all we do here. But I tell you that it's more than that right now. Also, the peer mentorship part is critical, but I also know that that's not the only thing that should be done, because you cannot put the, we cannot put the onus on students to do the work that adults are supposed to do. I just have to say it. I mean, many times, even when a person of color like myself, I'm sitting in the classroom and there's issue with race, or they are looking at me like I'm not the teacher. I am a student. You don't put that pressure on me to be the one, and sometimes we do that. So yes, peer mentorship is great, and we need to do that, and I know they are doing that, but I think that this work touches everybody, touches everybody. And Gus, over to you.
No, I just feel, I mean, I think what you're saying is exactly right. Like that, you know, why we've been, I think, more successful in the high school and the middle school is because of that peer mentorship element. But I think, you know, there is a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of education. Like I've tried to at least take every opportunity in high school and middle school to sort of learn about race and gender and D&I stuff, and I feel woefully underprepared to talk about that in college. I'm taking, and that's not, blot on any of the teachers. Like I learned more in Mr. Smith's super class and my super class of race and gender this year than I have throughout my whole career at Hastings, and that's been a ton, and I still feel like it's not nearly enough. And I've opted into both of those classes, and there's 14 kids in my race and gender class this year, and how many do we have last year? Maybe like 20 out of 150 in a grade, and those are probably the only two times when I can think of that I've had like sort of valuable conversations around those kind of topics. Like even in the high school, we might not be having these outrageous kind of incidents in high school, but we are not like there on D&I, not even close. And that's not to say there's not awesome work being done, but like there's like it should be a whole nother subject that we just like, I don't feel like I have the tools at all. And I'm, in college and now working really hard to try and get some of those so I can sort of be a sort of contributing citizen in those but like, I feel like I wish I had from school that school had taught me those kinds of things. I feel like that's something we as a district should be doing, and I don't know whether it's an administrator or whether that's training for teachers, but like, in my 13 years here, as much great stuff as there is, there's a big gap, and I hope that like for Eliana and for my sister and for all the people that are just starting out here, that they will get an education that, in addition to our fantastic math and science scores, really produces students that are
Globally ready.
Exactly, and compassionate and able to understand what racism means or ableism means or sexism, like that. We have surface level discussions, but I wish that my ability to do calculus and write English papers was matched by my ability to sort of understand and interact with that material too.
Thank you very much. That's very useful.
Well, I think like anything, the ability to be conversant in something that we don't know about is actually interacting with people who stretch us and having that conversation. I mean, I grew up in California in an overwhelmingly, what in olden times would have been called minority communities. For me, it was the exact reverse of a community like this. That was overwhelmingly Latino, overwhelmingly low income. And it wasn't until I went to college that I met people that are like in this community, where it was overwhelmingly Caucasian, affluent. And I think that, I admire the fact that we have a student community that is curious to learn about others and to stretch themselves in that way. But I do think that at least as it pertains to, and I can only speak about racism because I know about that more intimately than I could speak about other things and, differences in socioeconomic background. Those conversations come from real life experience. And I would just say the diversity in our community is not such that it lends itself to being able to, it's not something that you learn from a book. I mean, it's not to say that we're not gonna have excellent conversations taught by wonderful teachers, because we have the most top-notch staff professionals, kudos to all of them. But it won't be until you actually go out in whatever, pursuits people have beyond this community that you interface with people in a real and authentic way to understand and to hear and to really get what it is to spread your wings outside of this community. I mean, when I think about like my role here on the Board of Education, I think, my role here is to, in some small way, be able to contribute and say, who are we thinking about? What are we can't always just think about the people who reach out to us, right? Because there's some folks who are always very good and very vocal about getting their perspective across, whatever it is. We try to the best that we are, 7 volunteers here in this community to, present to a staff and an administration that we have a lot of confidence in. We want to say to them, prepare our students, in the way that Dr. Lang was saying about being global citizens. And I think the way that we cultivate empathy is to really listen, and, that's listening not only to our peers, but also to, the professionals in our schools. And, there's a lot of humility in that, I think, in understanding and gaining perspective, because I think that's the difficulty in a community such as ours, where we have a lot of homogeneity when it comes to, race, when it comes to socioeconomic standing, professional preparation. We're a small town, but we want to raise our kids, hopefully you guys, who are going to make the world a better place than the one you guys are inheriting from us, to really do something exceptional, because you really are a credit to our school district. And I think for whatever missteps have happened in the middle school, and I don't say that to minimize it in any way. I have a 6th grader, who came home quite shaken when he heard about what had happened. And we have these conversations not as a like, oh my gosh, this happened, but rather as a like, oh my gosh, this is the world that you live in. This is the world that you walk in, not because suddenly it's a deal. It's like, no, suddenly that's your life. That's what you were born into. So, I don't have any answers here. All I can say, with all sincerity, is that I do have faith in our staff and in our professionals and in the people we hire, that they are giving sincere thought and consideration. And I think these are things that we grapple with on a societal level, that, every time they kind of, and in the 13 years that I've had 3 boys go in the system, they always keep on cropping up. And I think that all that we can do is every time try to be responsive to them in a way that is genuine and that makes people feel respected, and maybe each time make a little bit more of inroads, but there's not a day that we're done, right? And I don't know if any of what I said was really relevant to any of what you said, Gus, and I apologize that it wasn't necessarily like an answer. It was just more like a, stream of consciousness
No,
there.
but I think it's an interesting connection, because one of the things that Gus raises is the idea of, you're sort of saying that you feel like, you haven't reached the end of something. And I'm always, I'm deeply interested in philosophy, and I'm always kind of amazed that you go back thousands of years where, these questions, these very abstract questions about the nature of our worth as humans, or human life, or love, or anything, the nature of the world, have been being asked, even back then, as almost as a human need to, and to your point, it's the asking, it's the willingness to ask, it's the humility to ask, it's the humility to question, that makes that. There is no end, right? There is nothing that you arrive at finally when you say, oh, it's buttoned up, it's done. It's that constant willingness to ask questions, and to that humility in the world that is the fundamental thing that's the goodness that we want to see come out of people. So, which is all to say that the asking is the thing, the willingness to do it. And I think that, like you, I'm heartened that that's a lot of what we do in a lot of ways. And I think that this district gets that. It's not always about the perfect outcome, but this district gets that and supports that, and I'm happy about that.
I just wanted to throw this last thought in here, which is that none of us initiated this, and I know I've said it many times. None of us initiated all of these discriminatory in that we have to somehow solve. The thing that we can do is perpetuate it or stop it, because none of us brought it into existence. And several years ago, I would not be sitting here. In my country of origin, yes. Chieftaincy, yes. I'll be in my place of dominance, right? But in this environment, in America, no. Does that make sense? Like, it's the structure the social structure did not recognize my place here as a person of color. Back home, I have my different structure there that I'll sit in places that had recognition. So we are in a country where this new knowledge is scarce, right? So I hear your point about the ill preparedness. Trust me, even adults are ill prepared. Like, you have more than adults. I kid you not, because when they were in school, I bet you there was no DEI there at the time that you're in school. You're around my age, so I know that.
No, and I
Right?
grew up in New York, so.
This to say that for me, I'm looking for growth mindset in this work because nobody knows it all. Nobody knows the navigation process. And we have a lot of community experts. Now, community experts is not just educational, but experiential experts who are in the shoes of those that are experiencing that. Does that make sense? So I have a sense of privilege, which I did not realize till an African-American person pointed it out to me. Calling my accent privilege. Can you imagine that? And I'm like, what the heck? It's an African accent. And I had to sit down and listen because I did not feel it was privileged. And no, your accent is privileged. You go to an interview with my accent as an African American, it just immediately is. That's exactly how she did it. She said, I speak this way because if I speak like I speak, and she imitated it, immediately my bar is lower. And I never thought of it this way. So we are all in this together. For me, that's all I'm looking for. And I am confident that that's what we are doing here in Hastings. And I hope that we could open that the actionable steps to make you feel prepared, your sister feel prepared, every other student feel prepared, is what we as a board will hold that accountability because that's our work. Our work is to give that oversight, trust in the people that Sylvia says that we all collectively trust are doing the work and keep asking for the accountability. And the community gives us that, but in a collegial, collaborative way so that we all know that we're all in this together. And when you go to college, the same way the seniors are coming back mentoring, okay, you know what I'm saying? Please do come back and help.
Could we have, at the next board meeting, just an update on the various things that are in play behind the scenes? I think that would be very helpful, and kind of ask, what are we missing, and some of the dialogue around that, because it is never going to be done, right? But I think just to give us something to react to would be helpful, because I know there is a lot of work going on. It'd be helpful for everyone to hear that.
And I think that we haven't mentioned yet tonight, and to Gus's point about, helping the other kids. I mean, I'm not on the committee, so I'm not personally involved in it, but we do have the Portrait of a Hastings Learner, and that is really meant to figure out what we need to have in our district, what we all believe in, what our moral compass is, and what we want it to be educationally wise. And so, like I said, I'm not part of it, but I think that it's meant to encompass all of that.
So Eliana's smiling at me over there because we have a whole student group mobilized to seek
Are you on the group?
from other,
Great.
from other groups, but the Cliff Notes version, so where we are in terms of we've moved from the goal areas, so we have the Hastings commitment, and we have the values, we have the attributes, and we have the goals that were defined, and then there was an action step planning committee. And what I can say is under those goal areas, we have an action step around authentic interdisciplinary lessons. We have an action step around an SEL-like structure to support welcoming, sense of belonging, nurturing environment. We also have something around a behavioral contract, like thinking about who, that's in there as well. And this is all in motion, and where we are at the moment is that this lives with some student input around how we make these action steps come to life. Like, how can we best do that for you as the students, because that's the reason we're doing this work. So we had adults designing, but we definitely need students helping us in the design process with this as well. Eliana, I didn't know if you wanted to say anything. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you've been involved intimately in the planning process for that.
And one of those main action steps we've been focusing on is restorative practices, restorative actions. So restoring
The fourth one.
Thank you. Restoring a sort of school spirit, and in situations like what happens at the middle school, creating a place where we can have a fast action and make sure we assess and talk about situations quickly and with a feeling of togetherness. And I can mention that there are students right now leading student focus groups on how we can incorporate these action steps into the student life in all aspects of the district. So actually, we have them planned almost
Tomorrow?
every day this week
Thursday, Friday.
and next week. There's some student leaders that are leading focus groups for 7th through juniors. So I'll probably update on that in the future.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
No, there's a lot that goes on that we don't.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that we make sure that we're allowed to have kids question and not understand and maybe say the wrong things. Because a lot of times, despite the fact that we have courageous conversation, it's not really a conversation. Because kids are afraid of saying the wrong thing, coming across as a racist, coming across as some sort of bigot. So there's no conversation in courageous conversation. We need to let people feel it's safe to say something because they don't understand, and that they're not going to be criticized or called anything. It's going to be a conversation about how can I help you understand what this perspective is and why, versus just this is what you do, this is what you think, this is what's bad.
Yeah, I'd really like to see what, what Maureen said. I think not putting it on our agenda item is probably a bad oversight there. That would be a way that the community and the residents can know, updates on it. We should be doing updates on it. We don't talk specifically, of course, in many areas, but in this area, I think we could speak to quite specifics. And we know our role. We're not administrators, but we're allowed to be involved and listen and, provide feedback from our own experiences. As to what the high schoolers are able to do compared to what elementary school students are, if Gus, you are on your way to college, we have a phrase, you don't drink from a fire hydrant. There's only so much you can take at a time. So in Hillside, we drink from water fountains. Whether that's the Who Am I books and you read about I Am Justice Sotomayor, or when you get up to middle school, maybe you try a more challenging I Am Mahatma Gandhi. There's even all the, there's so many ways that we do it, but it is in small sips, and to be 16 years old and have not experienced enough to really build off of it is normal, Taking it from a fire hydrant's a bad way to get a sip of water. You get what you get, and a lot of what parental involvement wants is appropriately, piecemealed out in middle school. How much can our 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds understand? They don't listen to announcements. Some of them do, but some of them don't. So it's not more what we can do there. They do listen to peers. They do listen to teachers. So it's always, our teachers in the classroom where we try to bring the curriculum, and it's in our English department, our book choices, it's in our history units. But, when you come out of middle school and you've studied civil rights in America, obviously 2 years later, you're going to be like, wow, that was the shortest version of the most interesting part of our country, So college is a place where you choose what you major in, and it might be a challenge when you have more than one interest and more than one ability. And we have high school students who are ready for a bigger chunk, and it's a challenge in a small district to try to provide enough courses. But there needs to be changes, and we need to address what our students are learning, what they're not understanding, how they're doing it. We can get involved growth in what's obviously not a misstep, but something that's missing, in where we're at. You can read globally or nationally, Florida is pushing no reasons that we need to talk about against the AP program, I believe, on the African American history, That's not where Hastings is. We're doing the opposite. We're pushing inclusion. How do we bring that curriculum in? But at the same point, college is where you really get to study what you want and try to become who you want to be. High school's where we have to introduce our students to that. And middle school's got to be where we clean up the misconceptions,
Right.
the unacceptable, it's not behaviors. Everything we say is minimizing it. But our role is to stay on top and hear from administrators. And it's a post-budget item, it's a pre-budget item. You know, we do have meetings occasionally in the summer, you know, not as frequent as this, but this is the major focus of our middle school, I believe, and I think it's clear to all parents and all administrators that that's how we need to judge our community and judge ourselves. And it's a stain, and it's more than 1%. If the halls aren't safe, then the soccer fields aren't safe, and it's not just that not inclusive. They are not creating an environment that our kids are learning about what it means to be in a privileged, safe, you know, affluent community, and to not be surprised when you step out the door. And it can't just be our students of color and our students of, you know, lower economic or more challenging special education needs who are the only ones experiencing it, because they're not going to be able to stand up and express it clearly.
I will be remiss if I don't pull this out from what Gus said. So we have to understand that not everyone has sat down to learn to deal with this hegemonic state of a society that has been received stereotypic parts to the marginalized who are suffering. And what Gus is saying cannot be minimalized because it's beyond educational. So for example, I'll just give one example because it looks very abstract. So race itself is a construct that comes with ugliness. When hillside kids start learning differences and we interject race, it comes with the hegemony. It comes with whiteness versus blackness is bad by introducing race. So if you don't have the real adequate, like Doreen was saying, that, okay, we have courageous conversations, right? But how is it going to unlearn the societal damage is so important, because none of these kids growing up are authors of these things. So we are all kids. We were all born. I see you, I like your hair, I don't like your hair, blah, blah, blah. Even on white folks, you don't like each other or you like each other. So there's all these humanness, right? But then all of a sudden you want to identify, you want to make sense of differences, and they throw race at you. So our problem you're facing is beyond Hastings. Demographics itself is sickening. How do you so far as there's white, there must be black, because black exposes white hegemony. Does that make sense? But how do we have white ethnicity? So this problem is systemic and is beyond Hastings. But the part that we can do is what you mentioned, right? The hate part, disdain, right? So regardless of what the society, till they figure it out, from where they have to figure it out, how do we, as learners, be able to engage with your own peers that you grew up together, that you sat in backyards together, that you attended parties together, and all of a sudden, it's like you are here and I am here, right? The culture, right? The culture. And so the DEI work is for that. And that's why I know when we were doing the policy thing, we were looking for the verbiage, right? The culturally responsiveness of the ethnic diversity or the different coexisting states, so that there's no shame in who you are. And that's the culture we want to actionably build here, because we cannot solve the systemic problem here. We cannot. But what we can solve is the culture and the responsibility, which I like the actionable step immediately. That we can do here. And so, and like Maureen said, when they give us the news, the community will see the work that is happening. So I'm I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. That's what I want to end. I'm going to end for
That's a
sure.
good place. I like that. I like that. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Any other board comments? No? Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Okay.
Second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.